All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're finally back. This has been one of those evenings. I'm your host, Billy Riddle. Back with me once again as my cheeky co-host, Simon Winch. Simon, it was one hell of a weekend. We missed you up in D.C.
I suspect for the better.
I think we could have knocked it out of the park if you were there, but kind of lying low a little bit and watching Harvey. We'll talk about this a little bit more once our guests have gotten out of here, but, you know, some of the things that happened up there, some of the people we met and talked to, and some of the things that might be in motion here in the future is all fairly exciting stuff. We kind of just laid low a little bit this weekend. I don't want to bite off a little bit more than I could chew. So we talked to a bunch of people, made some really fun, neat connections, and hopefully here in the very near future, we'll be, you know, working with some of them people on some stuff. But yeah, I had multiple people come up and ask me where Cornwallis and Lincoln were. So,
oh dear.
Speaking of Lincoln, there he is once again having his phone go off and interrupting. But what can you say? He's the reason we're the number one podcast in the German Baptist community. So
that didn't take you long to get out.
Well, I mean, look, you gotta go with what works, and that's Brandon right there. So Amos, appreciate you coming back here once again.
You said it was going to be outside, so I figured I could deal with it.
It's a pretty day, and I'm like, what the hell? My inside is a train wreck, pretty much like myself. The inside of my house is a train wreck and a disaster right now. So I think it's going to be nice outside. Should be breezy. There's been no humidity or anything. I did have these two over here sitting in the heat with the sun directly on them.
That was a very magnanimous and responsible move to relocate in the shade for our...
Thank you, Simon.
The responsible move was to put them in the heat in the first place, and you all effed my plan up.
I'm like, the sun's going to go down right there, and he was like, yeah, that's where they're going to sit.
And when you interrogate people, you put them in a room with the lamp.
We did leave them cushions, though.
Dirty trick campaign.
I turned the clouds on.
Well, I learned from you, Simon. What's that old famous quote you always... Never mind.
No, don't get me going on famous quotes. I got loads of them.
Anyway, so we're back here with a couple guests y'all might recognize. We'll go ahead and let them introduce themselves. Everybody knows who's coming on today. But gentlemen, thank you for joining us once again.
Yeah, it's good to see you. Holland Perdue, Mayor, Town of Rocky Mount.
Robert Wood, Town Manager, Town of Rocky Mount.
There we go, making stuff happen in Rocky Mount.
All over.
Yeah, no, Robert, go ahead. Just his didn't come through, so Robert, you can introduce yourself again.
I'm Robert Wood, Town Manager for the Town of Rocky Mount.
Yeah, sorry about it's like one of these things where you do it so much. I've done it so many times now I just question myself where it should be routine. I just pushed one little thing wrong and screwed it. Plus my daughter was over here earlier jerking around stuff, so.
There you go. Blaming how old is Claire? How old is Claire?
If you'd have been doing that, she wouldn't have got here.
How old is she?
She's 5.
And you're blaming a 5-year-old straight under the bus, both wheels. Nice show, Billy.
I'm just pointing out facts. She was over here.
Well, we've got legal representation, and I think facts count. I argue, but it's still threw a 5-year-old under the bus.
Got a ring cam right there. We go back and look at the evidence on. There's no throwing the bus. I'm just stating fact. So, yes, I am throwing her under the bus if that's how you want to look at it. Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. So, anyway, had a fun weekend. We'll talk about that here in the after show. Got these boys here tonight. And I guess first thing we'll jump on, as everybody's talking about, we've got a new purchase here. Well, actually, now, before we get to that, how are y'all doing? That's probably a more appropriate question to start off with. How are y'all two doing? Like,
good.
How's life, family, all that kind of stuff, travel?
Glad to be here with you. I hear you got a new baby on the way.
First the night's done come on, ain't it?
Look at that.
New baby on the way.
Yeah.
Another
Who's
registered
got a new
voter.
baby? You got it?
I thought you had one on the way.
Yeah.
Fuel
is charged.
Yeah, that's great.
That's probably why I'm so out of sync right now. But I think
we'd be thrown out of the house.
Yeah.
We're on the porch.
I won't even let him borrow my truck at this point because he ain't pulling out of a 50-acre parking lot without hitting something.
Look, I can't help. The good Lord bless me with the ability to pass on.
Here we go.
Pass on the genetics. That I've got something's working right. Something. I don't know what it is, but I got good looking kids. Well, just pass me that gentleman's jack, please, Simon. You done got me in this. So it was good to see. I guess the last time we talked to y'all gentlemen on the show was back in January at Anastasia's.
Yeah, that was a really good show.
Yeah, a lot of people listened to it.
Yeah,
a lot of people enjoyed it. What has happened? I'm trying to think. In the meantime, any kind of big announcements? I know the 151 has been announced in that meantime. How's that looking so far?
Yeah, the Rocky Mount Fest we figured that going with 151, 152, and just keeping going maybe wasn't the right way to go. So we're calling it Rocky Mount Fest. And right now, Daniel Pinard, who I think y'all know, is working on getting all the bands booked. And once we have those ready, we'll make that announcement. And I think it's going to be a good lineup like it was last year.
Yeah, I mean, last year was just that was just a superb event.
Yeah.
Thankfully, the weather was very cooperative.
That's the biggest variable.
And that's the with any outdoor event, that's what you're rolling the dice with. And I was just thrilled that went so well. And it brought a lot of focus to the town. A lot of local folks did financially very well out of it. So yeah, bring it.
And then the St. Patty's Day thing.
I was going to say, since we talked St. Patrick's Day, that was a big deal too.
I did that early, but I don't normally.
I think I saw you at some point.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, I think I did.
I did that early, knowing that I'd probably get into a bit of trouble. There'd probably be some beer chugging contests, and I can't turn those down. So
but it was a good turnout. It was a good turnout that day. A lot of people. All of the places were crowded, and that was a great one.
I got my glass.
You got your glass? Sorry, I got mine.
Well, my little girl loves Hallwell Grice, and they were playing at Living Proof later that night, and so. We're like, all right, she wanted to go listen to music. She got mad and made Mama take her home, so I just stayed. Too many people. She wanted to go. She thought she was going to old K Haas Brewery, and going to be able to dance in front. We get in there, it's shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah.
And but
were they offering free beer that night at Living Proof?
No.
How in the hell would we ever get a
Don't be hard on Grice.
That failed musician play music.
I knew where he was going.
It was predictable.
And what did he just get announced to be this year?
Don't throw him out like that.
In the school?
Don't throw him out like that. People, his business like that. Him hanging around a bunch of people like us, being educators.
Oh dear.
Yeah, he if anybody doesn't know, Harlow Grace Band brings us in most shows and ends us out. I do it because it's extremely inexpensive to do. We're on a paper thin budget over here, which is a big reason why you should go to patreon.com/getontap and become a subscriber like our guest here today did a couple weeks ago. I see who's in there subscribing, and we certainly appreciate that. Every little bit of it helps. It helps pay the bills and get to places like DC this weekend. And
I just subscribed because I heard you were talking about me, but
oh well,
I'm just kidding.
Well, if you go to
halfway decent.
Well, apparently now we may have some credibility of being a reliable source of information every now and again.
I mean, for like 20 years, but he just does it to my face.
But actually, this might be a new.
Just stop getting long-winded. I got a question. So
Patreon.com/get. I'm trying to get. You're not a subscriber. If you want to cut me out a check right here to knock me out of my advertisement, I'll be happy to stop and let you go. But anyway, you can go there and support us, and you can hear our after shows where we do talk about people. And most of the time it's good. It's not always bad. But maybe now we'll just start talking about one new person a week just so they'll subscribe. A lot of times people subscribe and forget about it. People just want to hate on us. I don't think that's Holland. I think he's going to be a subscriber for quite some time. He might even increase.
That's 52 new subscribers a year on that basis, Billy.
Well, we can figure out a way to do it.
There we go.
There's only one way to do it, by going to patreon.com/getontap. Amos, I'll be looking for that check for you cutting my promo short here anytime, but go ahead and ask your question. You done got me popped off in rare form. Now I'm going to drink a little bit more liquor.
Put all the gate hardware on that tab.
Huh? I did put the gate hardware on that. Oh, God dang it.
Got him.
There we go.
I'm going to shut my
so
mouth.
easy.
So back to the 151, like all the bands and stuff local, trying to do as much local as you can do.
Yeah. At least from the region, from nearby. So
I'm going to tell you right now, we got some of the best people in music there is.
There's an incredible amount of musicians around here. I mean, you go Twin Creeks does the jam in the middle of the week on Wednesday nights, and there's always good music. The Alley Cat has started doing an open jam on, I think, also on Wednesday nights, and so there's just a lot of good musicians.
I was thrilled how the Alley Cat did the acoustic set for Crawford and Powell when Crawford and Powell did the Harvester. I thought that is how that should evolve.
Yeah.
There's an acoustic set with a very it's a unique vibe down there too. And then to do the big live show in the Harvester, that's just it's embryonic.
And there was a good crowd for that too.
Yeah.
And you know, I honestly think Rocky Mount, you know, you travel all over the country. A lot of these towns that, whether back in the day it was textiles, it's this. The small towns in America that are thriving, it's by visitors coming in. That is, you know, you go through some of the podunkest places in Texas and some of the most thriving towns, and even Floyd, for example, you know, you have to have a reason.
Well, the reason why the towns were thriving back in is because we had industry.
It's the best place in the world. I'm convinced of that.
We had coal.
Yeah.
We
I mean,
had
Callaway
textiles,
is, but
we had
Rocky Mount's
furniture.
close enough.
Close second.
Yeah.
Close second.
Well, you know, it's important to recognize that the areas downtown are starting to build up. We've got new restaurants. We've got new businesses coming. It's bringing people here. You know, when you have one restaurant, you come down, you go to a show, you've only got one place to go. Now you've got options. And again, and now on nights you don't have shows, you've got options at the Alley Cat. You've got Living Proof that have bands. And so it's letting people know we've got music, we've got fun. Come down, hang out.
And you know, just,
Restaurants are coming.
Yeah.
I mean,
2 new ones coming.
Yep.
4 new restaurants. There'll be.
Yeah. Well,
Well, there'll be another one with Philip and the Morris Hotel, and
Right.
and the
Which
tasting
actually would
room,
make 5. So,
which yeah,
When
the
Cher opening up.
Crooked Road place that's right down there
That's it.
downtown.
yeah.
They're going to open up. You've got
When Cher opening.
Cheryl Richards' place, Little Shabby's.
Yeah, I love that.
that
My
place.
baby.
That should be imminent.
That's going to be great food.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
should be any time. Center Stage is still getting ready to open their place, and then I think since last time we were here, Zaxby's was announced.
Yeah. So it's huge. That's
I was kind of having my no disrespect to Zapsky's in case you ever want to throw some, you know, at the show, but I had my fingers crossed for Biscuitville. I'd heard some rumors about a year ago, and I don't know if you ever had Biscuitville, but we need
Well, just so you know, and because it's out there on the internet, we don't pick and choose who comes. If you buy a building, you get to pick what you're bringing.
No.
I'm not to you, but
yeah,
I mean, we see it on the internet.
we
like
hear
you
that
should
a lot.
bring this, and it's not really about what we should
Or
bring.
why did you let this restaurant come?
Well, a
that's the way it
franchise
works.
that size, they're going to decide themselves.
Well, yeah, they do all their statistics. They do, you know, their catchment areas.
Yep.
I mean, that's how it is. But I do have a good chuckle at the internet with some of the local pages, and if they're not making a keyboard warrior comment from their basement, then they're covering it by being anonymous. As soon as I see that credibility just gets flushed down the toilet.
Now, hold on 1 second now. And in case anybody didn't know this out here, yes, I am the admin on the Franklin County Community and Events page. Now, I am bombarded with garbage on that page half the time. Sometimes I'm declining it. It's people not in this town. It's advertisements that don't make sense, scamming, whatever. And AI also removes some of those as well. So sometimes AI gets it, and so I don't cancel anybody, and I don't I'm a free speech absolutist. And the anonymous thing, my thing is, like you said, when people want to be anonymous, they might have their reasons. It's not me to question what their reasons may be. But then Simon gets on the other day and starts harping and talking crap about the admins of this page, saying they got no backbone and stuff. I'm like,
And I
Simon,
chimed in.
it's like, Simon,
It
we
was
are
priceless.
the backbone of this page.
By the way, I'm Billy and I'm an administrator, and I just went, why, Billy? Why didn't you
I
download
got my
it?
reasons for it, but
That was funny as hell. But it
But
wasn't
I can
just...
always see, just to let y'all know who is anonymous, I can see who you are. The admins can see who you are.
Okay.
And so it's not completely anonymous.
What gets even worse, the anonymous thing when they're asking, oh, by the way, has anyone seen my brown dog that's missing on such and such road? And they post it anonymously. I'm like,
I haven't
really?
seen those. Like I said, most
Oh,
of
no,
mine are-
trust me, Billy, they're coming out there. But the worst ones are the ones that hide behind the fake name. Now, I'm not saying that I've never done that before, but mine have been in jest. There's some fake names out there. I mean, I'm not even going to say, no, I can't. I
know who that is.
But anyway, but there's some fake names out there that are just stirring malicious shit. And that serves no purpose, because if you're hiding behind a fake name and you're looking to stir it for whatever purpose, put your name out there.
Oh, it serves a purpose.
Well, it doesn't, because
but it's not for the good.
No, it's
you're
not
not
good.
helping a cause of growing something when you
no.
hide.
Well, look, I'm all for anybody expressing their opinion. We don't have to agree on anything. We can agree.
Exactly.
We can disagree all the time. But I do appreciate knowing where you stand on something. If you have a name that is a movie name or something like that, just be who you are. Ask your questions. We'll answer your questions, but at least own who you are.
Yeah.
And again, I was talking to somebody earlier today. I said, look, if I came on here and said we're going to announce Chick-fil-A tonight, somebody would go crazy and say that's what's going to happen. But that's how it is on the internet. You get people sitting there and they'll say stuff and people just believe it's true. And next thing you know, it actually happened and it definitely did.
Why do you think I put the malicious rumor out there that NASA was moving to Summit View? I couldn't help it.
I'd heard that, but that went over my head in case you missed that.
I couldn't help it. I just couldn't help it. But I mean, that's just having harmless fun. But when it comes to malicious, damaging statements that have got no truth in them, poor factual, it's just poor intellect.
Yeah.
You know, and it just doesn't serve.
Which
a
is
purpose.
the internet altogether. It's just
Which
you got to be able to weed your way
unfortunately it
through
is.
it. I mean, the internet has given, like Mike Tyson said, the internet has given people who would normally get knocked out the opportunity to not get knocked out and say things, things that they wouldn't normally say to people in person. It's given the weakest link on the chain a voice. And what are the weakest links on the chain all do when they figure out they can band together, then become one strong chain. So I think that's a lot of the reason why we have the things and it's very tough to get past that muddled nonsense and get to it. I want to talk about the 151 again. Since it's becoming a thing, I'm hoping that you all maybe you can talk about it a little bit about about future things. If it's going 151, and obviously we mentioned 152, I think it's got a lot of potential to become something. You can intertwine it as a music festival, kind of like it already is, but every year the bands get bigger because it gets more and more coordinated because it becomes a thing. Have y'all thought about the future about it any beyond this year and things to that nature? Like, have you been setting things up for beyond this year with things like that?
Well, I mean,
you could.
Okay. I don't know if we need to stop.
It's all right. The terrorists are trying to escape.
Or she's trying to come out here and defend herself from being the line earlier. Yeah.
For being run over by our own father.
Well, we more or less, I mean, the basic story is that we're planning on doing a similar event like we did last year. It worked very well. So it's one of those, if it's not broke, don't fix. You don't need to change
You're
anything.
hoping to move on year after year with
and just make it a regular thing from now on. And unless something changes drastically, it looks like people responded well to it. When we've had the other events, like earlier when we talked about St. Patrick's Day, those have gone really well. So people seem to respond well and like those kind of events. So our plan is to keep doing them as long as they're successful.
Yeah, I think that's how to go. I think it is 2026 and the 250th. That's going to be another major event for the town. And I'm sure plans are afoot somewhere about how to monopolize.
Well, once you start getting a little bit of cohesion, once you start getting a little bit of momentum, traction, and it's like, okay, well, every year this is going to happen. Within 4 or 5 years down the road, it's like, well, now we have these like major big bands coming. This is going to be at this stage. This is going to be at this stage. You've got more entertainers, celebrities, whatever's going to show up. I mean, I think it's a good start. It's a good start.
There's limitations with live music and the number of stages you put within the town.
Depending on what kind of permits you pay for. Remember, it's not illegal if you can pay a fine.
Well, there you go. So there is that limitation, but that's not a bad thing. I don't think that's a bad thing at all. I think having those smaller, because I was at, what's the place in Roanoke where it's the open air amphitheater?
Elmwood Park.
Elmwood Park.
Yeah.
Or Dr. Pepper, that's another one too.
And it was, that was there a couple of days ago. And it's a great venue, for open air, but that open air venue scares the pants off me if you're running it as a commercial venture. I'm like, ooh.
Yeah. Well, the multiple stages. And the multiple stages let people move around, see the whole
and
part
that
of the
allows traffic movement. I kind of like the multi-stage and separating and keeping it small and vibrant and personal. I kind of like that. That's what
when you start getting the bigger
should be.
bands, and then people come like, okay, I got this band. And this band's going to be on the stage in 20 minutes. I'm going to walk by, grab me something to eat here, maybe grab me a drink at Anastasia's. I'm going to go to the second band. And then, you twist it. I'm saying it's fun to think about all the possibilities you could have when you start getting some momentum about it.
Well, with the bigger name acts as well, then you're putting them, into the Harvester, the Adicat, and you can incorporate those venues as well.
Well, it's important to know that we invested in software recently that tells us where people are coming from. And 150 Fest was I guess that was the test.
It was kind of the first big event we had where we tried it out, and that's how we were able to confirm that there was about 16,000 people there.
And you can see where they're coming from. So we know that we're bringing people not just from the county, we're bringing people in here.
Those are the ones you want.
That's right. Yeah. And so,
those are the ones you want.
That's it. But it's good to see. But the more people that recognize what's going on in Rocky Mount and come back and they spend a weekend, they go to a show, they go eat at a restaurant. That's the goal. Is to draw attention to Rocky Mount and then bring people back to Rocky Mount after they visited the first time.
You told me something, I think it was last week, that when you came into office, there were a number of vacant buildings in downtown. How many was it?
There were 11.
There was 11 vacant buildings in downtown Rocky Mount when Holland got into office. How many are there now?
2. And I think that speaks to what council's doing. I think that and management's doing. I mean, the people are seeing there are opportunities here, that there are people wanting to come here, and it's a good area. And it's a good area to open a business. It's an area that welcomes business, and it's an area that wants everybody to get along and make some money.
Well, historically, Franklin County may not have been one of the best attractors for business, but I don't want to open that already open wound between town council and board of supervisors, unless you wanted to go down there. But the one thing that struck me, and again, I'm trying to steer the conversation down some of the feedback that we get on the show. Sure. And I'd love to hear your comments, because we've had them offline, about the new purchase of the bank. And I know it's a potentially a contentious issue for what we've discussed previously, but I'd love you to kind of get into that discussion. And we've already figured out the perception of what is going on and what you're trying to do, but I think you've probably got some more information that will allay some of the fears about some of the negative aspects of how people view that purchase. But I'd love you to just start with that, because I know that's a big topic that people are interested to hear about.
Well, I think Robert and I agree that building is a phenomenal building.
Oh, sure.
Well,
sure it is.
It's one of those buildings that literally, I mean, it's a beautiful building, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's no disagreement by anybody
None
here
whatsoever.
that's what it is. But, it's funny because today I was looking at the comments that were on the Franklin County page, and you look at people talking about the theater site and how it's been vacant forever. Well, if somebody bought this building as an investment and it sat vacant, it would kind of deter what we're doing downtown. That building that we haven't purchased it yet. We've got a contract on it. That building is a great part of downtown.
Yeah, it's integral. Absolutely.
Well, and the thing is making sure that it gets developed in a reasonable amount of time and not left vacant is very important to downtown, because downtown right now is thriving. And I would challenge anybody to say it's not thriving.
So when it comes to the reason for purchasing now, and a lot of people aren't aware of this, is that by the town purchasing, and there's some criticisms about that purchase, but as you've explained last week, a lot of the rationale behind that purchase makes a lot of sense to me now that I know that rather than having, and it's in conflict with what I'm about to say next as well, which is quite interesting. But you're looking for it not to be vacant, and by purchasing that building away from the private sector, allows you to put some control measures in place when you present it back to the private sector. And I understand that 100%, because if an investor comes in and says, that's a great building, I'm going to buy it, there's a number of problems with it. Number one being a bloody great big bank vault that's in the middle of the building to start with. So you're already going to be caught in a numbers game with a development cost because you've got to get that out.
Unless you can incorporate it somehow.
Unless you
into
can
something
incorporate it into something. And I think I may have mentioned it on a show a couple of months back. That would be a great sound booth for a vocal booth for a recording studio. But that's pie in the sky. But nonetheless, that sort of thing, you can adapt it. So I hear what you're saying about it may not necessarily have to come out.
Yeah. Well,
if it was incorporated in a feature that was part of a developer's plan. But if it went directly and the bank sold it to a developer directly, and that was in my mind, that's the preferred way of doing business.
If the town
got
a good enough deal, though.
But that's exactly it.
You got leverage as far as some of that as well.
Yes. So if a private investor bought it, it could be sat there for a number of years. And that is exactly what this town doesn't need at this point in time.
Well, and it's important to recognize that when the town purchases something, like you said, they can control it and make sure something, but we can also reach out to investors and say, look, bring us your best idea, but we can deal with a time frame that's not a 10-year frame, a 15-year frame, 5-year frame. So, I mean, the goal is to find an investor, and I'm hopeful that we will. We've had people reach out to us since the purchase about.
But your goal is to sell it back to a private firm or to keep it, lease it.
The goal, at least, I mean, that's of course up to council and everything. But I think when we originally thought about this, it was to purchase it, to make sure somebody got it, to develop it, and they owned it. I don't think the town wants to be. The town, contrary to belief, does not want to be in the real estate business.
So you looked at
there. We go, and that short term, and I get that. Well, even the long term, even with the county and
short
85
term
acres
in development business
in Ferrum and all that. I mean, that's
long term's development business.
That's a nightmare. But here's one comment that I did hear, and I cannot verify the validity of this statement. But one of your town council members was overheard saying, "Oh, we're going to make it a boutique hotel," and I'm like, "What? What?"
And it wouldn't surprise me. I don't know what was said or what wasn't said, but it wouldn't surprise me if maybe that was said as part of a bigger conversation. Because people have asked me, what will be done with it, and I'd say, well, we don't know. But we've seen in other places, historic buildings, even specifically banks, that get turned into restaurants or boutique hotels, or maybe they're a restaurant on the first floor and apartments on the second floor. There's a lot of different things that you can do.
That's a good idea.
Well, yes, it is.
Because Franklin County won't let you do Airbnb, short-term rent.
Well, that's an issue with Franklin County.
That's a way around the town does a boutique hotel, then that's not a short-term, that's not an Airbnb.
Wait a minute, not the town. Time out. No, but look, there's a lot of ideas that are swirling because private investors we've gotten calls from people want to know if they can submit applications or whatever. It's important to understand that, one, we don't own the building yet. Two, once we own it, we're going to try to get with everybody we can and say, look, tell us what you want to do with the building, but give us a time frame. Because again, downtown's booming. We don't want to see this building set vacant for 5 to 7, 10 years.
And that also gives the town a chance to add to what's already in downtown versus, somebody coming in with their own idea.
Yeah, and we don't necessarily need, another nail salon, a tattoo parlor, or a vape shop. Restaurant. Well, I mean, when it comes down to it, there's sufficient.
Yeah.
The side that Holland and I have discussed over the last couple of weeks, in fact, it goes back even further than that, is the perception, and I'm concerned by it. Is the perception that the town is competing in the private sector marketplace, and that I've got problems with
more knowledge than the private sector.
But there's also there is no accountability when it comes. Well, I'm not saying there's no accountability. There is less accountability when you're investing taxpayer money as opposed to private sector investor money, and I'm not saying loan sharks or a specific kind of investor, but when you're using taxpayer money to do that and protect from a private investor for private investment, it's complex. It's not straightforward. And I have problems with that, just on the basis that the private sector needs to have the incentives to do what it does, but not be in competition with a municipality or a board of supervisors.
Well, but I think that's a double-edged sword. Sam,
Absolutely.
because the problem is one, the town reached out. It was in the press. We reached out to them. Anyone could have reached out to them. Now,
yes,
that's number one. Number two, the town's not. We're not trying to compete with the private. We're trying to take something and make sure the private sector gets in there and makes it better, faster. You have to find if you might want to. You might have money sitting around and want to invest it in a building and just hold on to it, but that building sits at a part of downtown that an empty building for 10 years would be. It'd be detrimental to
absolutely
that part of
it
downtown,
would.
and so
it sends a very bad signal.
And no one thinks about, well, what if somebody just tore it down? What if somebody just bought it and said, we're going to tear it down and we'll just put something else here?
Wow,
that'd be bad news.
But you don't.
I mean, it seems crazy to even think that somebody would do that, but stranger
No,
things
not
have
really.
happened. I mean, it would.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe somebody just built a parking garage and charged people $5 to park there. You don't know, but I mean, the point is, this is a great building, and it's a great thing for the town to try to make sure someone comes in and takes care of that building. That building's been here before we were here, and I hope it's here a long time after we're here. But we want to make sure somebody takes care of it.
And I'm assuming, like downtown like that, I'm sure the town had, like, you can't go in there and change the facade of them buildings, can you? The outsides of them?
We don't have very many.
You don't have
it's not a historic district where you're not allowed to change anything.
Oh, it's a historic district.
Well, I mean,
yeah, but it
not
isn't
in the sense that it has restrictions on it. Yeah,
it is to people that grew up here.
Yeah,
absolutely. Right.
Sure.
Right. Yeah. But there's no restrictions.
Oh, that's terrible.
So
that was my big concern. My big concern is that, and I use the word commingle not in the fraudulent sense, but the commingling of public sector and private sector. And I think your interests in that particular regard are the best interests for that building and development. In a timely fashion. So I'm not knocking that at all, but I just want to raise that as a point of concern because that's what we hear.
Well, and I get that. And I guess I'll say this, and Robert can kick me if I get too far down the line. But, we've had we have public meetings all the time for the budget. We have them for everything we're doing. I think people are happy because they're not showing up to say negative things. Now, I do see them on the internet. I see that on the internet, but those people have the same right to show up to the meetings and express that.
It would be much better to turn up to the meeting and either raise the heat in the room or actually hand out a pat on the back and go, guys, I think you're doing the right thing.
Well, to play devil's advocate, it's tough to get to the meetings a lot of times because there's not a lot of industry here in Rocky Mount anymore. Some of you sitting pretty empty over there. When we got someplace, a lot of the people we have to travel outside of town to go to work. For me, I work all the way in Salem. That's 50 minutes both ways. It's tough to get back here and make town council meetings, board of supervisor meetings. I'll try and catch what I can on the internet. So
move to Salem.
It is difficult, huh?
Move to Salem.
Oh,
you like Rocky Mount?
Huh? Somebody offer me a job that pays as good as I get in Salem, and I'll be glad to stay here. I would love to stay in Rocky Mount. I would love to be here.
But I think the double devil's advocate is, if you don't like it, run for office.
Yeah.
You know what?
Or at least show up at the meetings. It ain't even about running for office. If people...
Well, this has been presented to all three of us
people sit around
at one
and you
point
talk
in
to
time.
people that you disagreed with or something, people don't express that except hidden.
But if you say you can't show up for the meetings, you can always run for office. It's not limited to your time frame.
Then you have to show up for the meeting.
Well... But I'm just saying, I mean, look, I think everybody's entitled to their opinion and to say what they disagree with and agree with. But I mean, just if you feel that, if you feel that much about it,
engage,
do something. If that's what you feel.
I mean, I've got no business. And I've explained my equity in my sort of love affair with Rocky Mount in that. I don't live here. I don't vote here. It is the county seat And as far as that goes, yeah, that makes I'm invested in the success of Rocky Mount as the county seat. So even if you're from Callaway or Union Horse, Snow Creek, Glade Hill, we're all invested in the town seat being a very successful entity in itself.
You're way invested.
Oh, absolutely.
You raise goats. You raise sheep.
Yeah.
You had the more restaurants, the more people, the chefs that come to Rocky Mount that want local animals, because that's where it's at. Everybody wants local stuff.
It's coming.
And that's where my investment is here. I want to sell my cows to Rocky Mount.
Yeah.
To a restaurant in Rocky Mount.
So the more restaurants and the more that vibe happens, and getting through that red tape, which unfortunately the Board of Supervisors just cannot seem to do. And I don't want to get into that conversation because it's a bit unfair with you two gentlemen, because I'm sure you'd probably agree with some of the things I've got to say about how the Board of Supervisors does and doesn't do business. But there we go. Yeah, more restaurants, more venues, more bars, more events. I think that the town is doing a great job in that regard. I really do.
The leniency on people being able to walk joint to joint, carrying a beer, stuff like that. That's what attracts people.
That's a bizarre rule. I'm sorry. That's just so weird.
Door is really important to bring. I agree with you. Door is important to bringing people here, but it gives people a unique opportunity in small town.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I can't tell you the amount of people that came up to, not to me, but my mom, and said, look, I never thought I'd be walking around Rocky Mount carrying a beer and listening to music. But it's cool. I mean, it's fun.
That's all we did in high school at the Kroger parking lot, was carrying a beer.
Or roses back and forth when the cops run us off.
Yeah, but divers would come up here.
So now you can do it legally if you're 21. There's another bizarre rule, but anyway, I'll leave that one alone.
It's interesting too to get an outside perspective. Sometimes and it made me think of it when y'all were talking about some of the downtown, the new restaurants and things going on. I was actually sitting at Anastasia's just by coincidence a couple of weeks ago. I was eating dinner with a friend, sitting at the bar, and met two ladies that were here from out of town. So I started, just as I tend to do, why are you here? What brought you here? And they were here because one of the women and her husband were buying a house here. They were here house hunting. And I said, I before I told them who I was, I said, well, what brought you to Rocky Mount? Why'd you choose Rocky Mount? She said, well, we came here one time for something, and we just think it's a great place, and there's things happening. It's an exciting place to be. They mentioned Old Town. They mentioned the brewery. They mentioned, they were at Anastasia's. They had been to shows at the Harvester, and they said, my husband and I both work remotely. We can live anywhere we want. They're currently in Wilmington, North Carolina. They said it's gotten too big, too busy. Yep. And so they're looking for a place to go. And they said, we came here and this is it. This is where we want to be. And the next day they were going house hunting. So
that's exactly how I got here. I was working offshore. And so I could live anywhere, and they fly me wherever I got to go, invariably horrible places. But I had that ability, and this fit me like a hand, a hand and a glove.
And showed up in Callaway.
Yeah, and showed up in Callaway of all places. Callaway chose me, mate. I had nothing to do with it. So yeah, the success of the town, I think, is visibly a success story, and it's an evolving success story, which is great.
Absolutely.
So that purchase, we can get our heads round. I can get my head round it, because it's maybe with the best interest of not having a vacant building in a key part of town. That I get. And I think people need to figure that out as well. What we've got loads of other areas.
Well, it's hard. So this is the fun part about this is
y'all don't want to have any idea how many questions have got sent to us, by the way.
Oh, it's out to yin yang. We won't bother you with all of them, but one big aspect of it is, and I don't think anybody out there is uninformed about my political views. I'm very libertarian as far as politics. We'll talk about that a little bit more in the after show. But I'm more of an anarchist, and I want as little government as possible. I think that's been very well understood, and that's why it's so much fun to have these two guys here, because look at what they're doing, and when you look at it from a perspective of, okay, it's going to make the place better, is the juice worth the squeeze? So I guess
That's a good expression. Is a juice worth a squeeze?
Well, so I guess, from my point of view, it's like, well, this is great. It's going in this direction right now. And perhaps we'll look back on it and say, okay, everybody benefited from this. Everybody's property values went up. So if they wanted to turn around and sell, they made more money. They had amenities here very much closer. Whatever your pros and cons are for using taxpayer money to do these kind of things, what would you say to the taxpayers who are footing the bill for a lot of these things that they're not going to fully understand the outcomes of for years? You're gone in 4 years, 8 years. Maybe you don't want to do it anymore. You go on and the next administration comes in and just completely squashes it. You know what I mean? Like the politics of it, I'm sure have some people concerned. So,
it's funny. We talked when I was running for mayor, before I was mayor, we talked about this, and you have 2 young children and you have one on the way. There is probably a high probability that your kids won't come back here years ago, because you and I went to high school in the same time frame, and most of them didn't come back here. And you see it on these boards, and they're not anonymous when they say it. Their kids aren't coming back here. You've got to give people a reason to come back here. Franklin County is a great place, not just the town of Rocky Mount, but it's a great place. But if you don't give people a reason, you don't give them jobs, you don't give them places to live, there's no reason for them to come back. So, to us, that's the goal, is to build something that people can come back to and enjoy, and not run the young people off to Roanoke, Salem, Blacksburg.
So basically, you're hoping that whatever momentum you all have here right now is going to carry on to whatever comes in beyond y'all. It's going to, that's good. It means you have faith in what you're doing. Yeah. So if you have faith in what you're doing,
when Billy talked to me the other day, said you was coming on, I was like, yeah, I'm going on there.
Thanks.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But I was like, also with all the stuff that's going on, bringing people in, stuff for the kids to do, to me, like, if the town's going to invest something, keep it for the town as parks. Mary Elizabeth Park was here when I was a little kid, and I hope y'all found out whoever went down there and got random. Like the parents want to go somewhere where they can have their night out, but also take the kids to the kids things, whether, just like the whole craziness about, Franklin County did promise us a splash pad. We see that ain't happen. But like something like that, that is something the town should invest in and keep for the town. Kids park, something that makes people want to come here with 2-3 kids and want to hang out for the weekend.
But is that not a private sector decision to bring that in?
That's the thing. When everybody gets mad when the town buys something, and then you say, well, we'd be okay if you bought it and did this, it's a little unfair to both sides.
Very much so.
But I feel like that a big park where a lot of it was free. Now you charge for the splash pad, but the town has a vested interest in doing stuff like that. That's not developing, in my opinion.
And Amos, I appreciate that. The town has 5 great parks, and they got a 6th one on the way. And people, they don't appreciate them. And
in towns of 4,000 or 5,000 people, you don't usually have that many parks.
No, but I was saying we certainly appreciate them. We use them all the time. I know what you mean.
Yeah, but people need to understand how many we've got here and look at them.
Mary Park, Mary Bethune,
there's great things to do.
Park.
But I think that the people in the county don't understand, outside of the town of Rocky Mount, how many great parks we have here and the reasons to come here. And next year, we're going to have a dog park opening, first in the county, by the way. And it's going to be great.
Say that one more time.
First in the county, by the way.
There we go.
By the way, don't be giving any of these guys my ideas, because I'm telling you right, we got some people know how to build stuff. There's some great opportunities. Like there's a Mommy Town place in Roanoke, but there's another really phenomenal place down in Richlands, Virginia, that we could probably do on the private side. You get a few investors in here, that'd be phenomenal. Because you get in there, you build these indoor playgrounds where kids can slide down in tubes, put a few arcade games in there, little crappy pizza, pay a couple high schoolers. But I want people to invest in it. It's like, come you
and that's where the
Adam
difference
Grindstein,
to
I know
me
you're
is
listening to
between
this.
a county or a town deciding they're a developing firm versus the town coming to private individuals, hey, you want to sell this building? Yeah. All right. We pick it up at a decent rate. Then you go to private. Here's our vision. Now, and then let it back off to the private side.
But it sounds like you're agreeing. It sounds like you're agreeing with what we're doing.
It does.
Sometimes the local government needs to invest to make sure that the private side can make sure things grow quickly and do it the way it's supposed to be done.
That's right.
Right.
And that's what I like.
And
that's the way it's supposed to be done.
But how conflicted is that with this splash pad conversation that I'm hearing over the interwebs, that everyone's saying, oh, that we should have, that the town should do this or the county should do that. That's the absolute conflict with that private sector investment. Is that appropriate for the town or the county? I would say probably not. We've got parks, and if an investor comes in and sees a profit margin that can be made, then sure as hell, I guarantee you a splash pad will come here if we have the visiting population that allows that to be a commercial viable project.
But now to my three other favorite people, minus Robert's point, if the town bought land and sold it to a private investor to do that, some people would be up in arms that we bought the land to do that in the first place.
There is that conflict.
There is
absolutely
every day, all day.
Right. But the difference is sometimes the town or any local government might see an opportunity and say, look, we could do this and we could get this business here. We may have to give them incentives, but then it makes things grow. And so I think that's my problem with the people that say, look, local government shouldn't buy things. I agree. I'm as conservative as you come, but my thing is when it comes to local government, sometimes you've got to help progress come.
You've got to give it a nudge in the right direction.
Well,
and I think that's what we're trying to do. And maybe
because a small town, if it has a vision, it can encourage investors there because maybe it's something they agree with, but they haven't seen that. But long-term developing projects is where I get sore. I ain't saying the town as much as the county, but I'm just saying.
Well,
that's where I think
the 85 room hotel on 220 Business, that's an intriguing proposal. But when you break down the numbers and you look at the occupancy and the finance, then it becomes a bean counters game about how viable it is with the overheads that they have to sustain with their occupancy. That 85 room hotel is quite, to me, I think that's, and having done the numbers, and I can't off the top of my head recount them, but it was quite stressful in how they were going to achieve the financing with regards to their occupancy. And to a certain extent, that's their problem. And I get that. But we've got to be very cautious, I think, as a town when we entertain these developments. And I know everyone's done their due diligence with the financing package behind that and the occupancy that they expect. It's still quite a tough sell when you actually crunch those numbers. Again, it's development with incentives, and we need to get that balance right. But I get what you're trying to do.
Well, to that though, the county did a study that said we needed 2 more hotels.
Yeah, and
we got one coming to the town of Rocky Mount. And sometimes you have to incentivize people to come here to make sure that things happen. And you can't necessarily, you don't give it away, but you can't just be scared to actually help things get here. You've got to have the conversation. You've got to have the conversation.
And we also don't, just like private businesses, we compete with other localities. And
absolutely.
We don't operate in a vacuum, so it's not like Mr. Patel, who's going to build a hotel. This isn't the only place he can build a hotel. And so we have to be competitive with the other place. You have to have the infrastructure and different things. And what's important to remember about incentives like what the hotel will get, right now, I think it's like $1,000 a year is what the taxes are that are generated by that property just by sitting there.
Doing nothing.
Doing nothing. And when the hotel gets built, all of the incentives that will go back to the owners come out of the new revenue that we wouldn't get. So it's not like we're dipping into the coffers to pay for it. It's going to be a portion of the amount that they're bringing in to help them make their numbers work. But it's money that wouldn't be here otherwise.
And exactly, they have to be successful, and there's no way that they would put that sort of development into bricks and mortar without having that revenue secured. So they've done their due diligence. I think, and I'm hoping that you guys have done yours and looked at that number crunching, because the number crunching with that, when I looked at it initially, I went, damn, their occupancy's that's a tough number.
Yeah, but you have to also look at it as if it's set vacant and we just collected that.
Oh, I'm saying go for the gamble.
Yeah, right. Well, the thing is, so Bedford, the same developer has something going on in Bedford. Bedford, the town of Bedford, and Bedford County got together and they worked a deal.
Yeah.
We worked a deal
Good
with
luck.
Mr. Martell.
Well, I see the potential there, and that's all about creating tax revenue for the town.
Yep.
And I'm all on board for
But
that.
also the county benefits from that.
I'm not worried about the county at this point.
I'm always worried about them.
Well, they concern me
but
because
they do now. To be fair, they do receive real estate property taxes
From the town.
and personal property taxes from anybody that develops in the town.
Any property in the town.
Yeah.
By the way, we are still located in the county of Franklin.
Yeah.
In
Yeah,
case
we're all the
anybody,
same thing.
Well,
Same Roanoke
in
City.
case anybody
for,
forgot
for
that.
people out there that don't understand this, and there's some people that listen out of state that might not, but Virginia's kind of unique, where Roanoke City or cities are their own entity. They're not incorporated into the counties at all. Lynchburg is not part of Campbell County. They have completely different governments. Roanoke City, Roanoke County, two different things. Radford City and Montgomery County are two different things.
But
Rocky Mountain is not a
Bedford City
city.
went from a city to
Well,
a
it's
town.
Exactly. Bedford
Right.
is not
Municipality.
Rocky Mountain is not a city, so we are still under. I still pay taxes in the county and the town. So when they're squabbling back and forth, I'm one of the people that are facing the negative aspects of that. So it's always my best interest to see them, hopefully, kind of coming together.
How?
But you're right. In other places, it's like where I was in Texas. In Texas, they're called cities, but they're not cities in the sense of what you have in Virginia. They basically, even the city of Austin has 1 million people. In Virginia, it would be called a town. It would be a town because it has overlapping jurisdiction with the county.
So, and that leads us on to the other gorilla in the room, maintaining a 13-cent. And this is coming. Actually, there hasn't been that much traffic about the 13 cents maintaining that tax rate, which I'm intrigued by. Now, I'd love to hear your comments on it. And I you know what? I kind of agree. You've got to speculate to accumulate. So I kind of get it.
Look,
But it's a tough sell.
well,
Kind of.
is it a tough sell?
Well, that's why I say kind
Because,
of.
we advertised it multiple times. I think 3 or 4 times.
Mm-hmm.
We had 3 or 4 meetings.
Oh, we tried to jump your ass on it a couple of times, but
no, no one showed up, but
No.
to the meetings and spoke out against it. Now, some people did on the internet and from other dioceses, as they may do. But, it's important to understand. I think people that live in town understand they have a very good tax rate and they see things going on. Now, if we were sitting here twiddling our thumbs and nothing was going on, I could understand where they are.
Yeah.
Going to 9 cents. Now you're going to hear that, and that's what they're going to say.
That would be net neutral, right?
Yeah.
That
You
would
go
the
back-
9 cents would have been roughly net neutral.
but-
About
Yeah.
The Franklin County never got to net neutral either.
But let's be honest. You want me to be honest with you? Here you go. This is why you put me on here. If we went to 9 cents this year, we'd have to go up next year. I can guarantee you.
Absolutely.
It would not be fiscally responsible to do it. And so anybody going down on their tax rate, next year they're going to go up. And if they don't, you can have them on this show and say that they're not going to go up on it, but you're not going to find a consensus. Everything on capital projects continues to go up. Inflation's going up. We can't change that. So we may bank a little money this year, but I can promise you when we don't go up next year, you're not going to be like, well, they went up on the taxes.
Therein lies something with the county, and I don't want to create the us and them with the county, because I think the county and the town need to work a lot more closely than they currently are. We're at an impasse with the county with regards to the funding of the fire truck. And
Is there any sort of updates on that?
well, we'll
Speaking
come
of
to
the
that
fire
because
truck,
that's
before-
Well, let's
but
let
that's-
Lauer make his comment on the.
But-
he had a comment.
Speaking of the fire truck,
no. Well,
Hold on, wait on fire.
Spike Pugh
Well, hold on,
is one of the best men that's ever been in this town. 75 years of Rocky Mount Fire Department.
Here.
Yeah, imagine
That is
everybody-
one of the
yeah.
best men
Okay.
ever.
Yeah, there were a couple of good stories
Love
about
him.
with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Carry on.
damn, you throw me off my
The fire truck.
Alice. No, I wasn't going
No, you were before
to.
that.
I was going to roll into the fire truck maybe as the next thing, but the 13-cent issue, and the county coming down from its position of 45 cents to 43 cents. I'm a bit more cynical about that because that was a game plan. That was part of a gaming situation. We've got these increased tax assessments. We know that hopefully they're a little bit of a spike. I don't see them coming down in reality in 4 years' time. That's just the way the economy works. I just don't see it, and that's the reality. But then for the town for the county to do the 45 cents and then drop down to the 43 cents, we know that the county is going to jack that rate up next year. They are absolutely obligated to do it. You're saying that may not be the case with the town, because you've taken a more fiscally responsible angle on maintaining 13 cents. And that I get. But when you play that game, and Franklin County, the Board of Supervisors played that game badly by not having that increase over 4 years, the COVID years, whatever you want to call it. When they didn't make those increases, they put an enormous amount of pressure on the incoming representatives and administration to punt and play a game. And that's what they did with, well, we're going to go to 45. We've come down from 62 to 45. We now know that everyone's hurting and the economy isn't as good as we all think it is because inflation is a disaster. And then they came down another 43 cents. Now, that was a little bit of a game. That was a play.
But I don't think that we have.
I don't think you're playing.
I don't think we have a group of people that are looking to be elected next time. I think we got a group of people looking for today for everybody.
And that's the problem.
Sometimes you got to make the tough decisions.
Yeah.
I thought a crazy woman was walking up on my property, and I was like, what in the world is she doing? I realized that's my mother-in-law. I hope she don't.
Wait, is this thing on?
Yeah. Well,
check. Mike 2.
Door 4 here real quick. I didn't even know where she parked at. Good Lord.
And I do like the progress I've seen in town. I do. They raise hell at me all the time.
No, you come on. It's fine.
So where do we sit now?
Progress.
I don't want to open and rip a Band-Aid off something that may be healing. But where do we stand now with the fire truck? Has there been any movement from the county in negotiation?
Yeah.
Okay. So I've had a couple of meetings with the county administrator, Chris Whitlow. I think y'all know Chris.
Yeah.
And I've had a couple of meetings with him. And in fact, I'm meeting with him in a couple of days, and they're supposed to have a proposal of sorts for us to look at to cover a number of issues. There's not just the fire truck. There's other things that we're talking about. So we're supposed to talk. And, that's a way that these things can happen. It can start kind of either at the elected official level, and they can kind of come up with some things and then ask us to work on it. And in this case, Chris and I are going to work on it and then try to take it back to the council and to the board.
Okay. That's a good thing. The fact that you're in communication tells me that it hasn't got to a point where it's got so personal that we can no longer engage.
Yeah, no, we're engaged. And I always tell people when they say, well, looks like the town and the county are, not getting along or not talking to each other. It's, at the staff level, we talk to each other all the time. We have to. The building department at the county, they do all the inspections in town. We do the planning and zoning part. We have to coordinate that. So we talk to them all the time and have a good relationship staff to staff. Sometimes the elected officials might disagree on things, and that's fine.
Well, and that's the thing about it. I know Holland has reached out a couple of times and invited some of the Board of Supervisors members to come on to the show and have these kind of discussions. And, I hope that invitation is always open to them. And I think we disappoint people from time to time with some of our shows that we've had with Holland, mainly being he's the only political figure locally. We've had some more national but he's the only political figure locally that comes on to the show. And a lot of people want to look at this as like a press conference or something. We're just at, question. But that's not what we are at the podcast. We are sit down, have a reasonable conversation about things. So if that offer's still on the table and you think anybody on the Board of Supervisors would ever want to sit down with you, we'd love to have them come sit down and just let's talk about things. We don't have to debate. We don't have to argue.
I told both of you when I was running, I wasn't going to be hard to find.
Yes,
I told you where I was going to be. And when you guys contacted me, I didn't have a problem coming and talking to you. When you guys contacted me about the purchase of the 64 acres, I said, look, y'all got some things wrong. Let's talk about it. We talked to you guys. We've come on the show. Look, I'm happy to do it.
Yeah.
I enjoy talking with you guys. And I'm not going to, I mean, look, I believe that you should be open with the public, but I also don't believe you should hide behind anonymous things or fake screen names. I mean, just if you feel it, say it. We'll answer your questions.
Yeah,
and we'll
come
move
out
on.
and have a go.
Let's go.
Come out and have a go. I mean,
well, at least Holland knows how to read emails, so you know,
or respond to them at
Look,
least.
all I'm saying is everybody knows I'm very critical. I just am. But I can also be approached. I can also sit down and have conversations, you know. So I think the perception gets out there that we're, you know, that we're scary and obviously we could, change things and we could, you know, make differences. I wouldn't be hard pressed to say, the last mayor of this town was a family member of mine. I wasn't very happy about how things were going and, you know, I brought it to the attention of people. I don't really have any kind of preferences. I just want people to be transparent and speak.
And before people say that, I mean, I've heard people say you guys support me. We have disagreed on many of things.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sure there's still some posts on Facebook that y'all have disagreed with me on.
Yeah,
but I mean, look, it's good to talk about.
That's not a problem. We can sit around a table and have a conversation. That's called the ability to compromise. That's educated people with informed decisions actually having a discussion.
And you don't have to agree with me when we get done talking.
No, absolutely.
We can still walk away. We shake hands as we have done, and we move on.
And no worries.
Absolutely.
but that's also encouraging the people that you'll actually talk about stuff. There's a lot of people that don't. You know, a lot of elected officials, you know.
Well, especially with people like us, because we're, you know.
Well, most people don't want to talk to us anyway, Billy.
Well, I mean, we have a reputation.
I wasn't going to come until if Amos was here, but then he showed up, so it got weird.
I mean, we do have a reputation, but honestly, at the end of the day, it's fun. You come sit around, we have a conversation. It's not, you know, it's not very strenuous. If we're critical, but if we're critical and you're prepared to come face those criticisms, then you're going to look a whole lot better. If you come and you're not prepared to face those criticisms, then, you know, people are going to wonder and people are going to be concerned.
Let me do some short fire questions. And I know that you've got, I don't want to go down too hard, but if we hit a couple of questions.
There's some people, when we have Holland on, and he's very receptive to it as well, we reach out, we say, hey, on the community pages, about to have him on. If you have any kind of questions, please reach out. And he's always been pretty receptive for it. So these are questions that have come through separate members of the town. And
from various sources. So one of the ones that I know you're willing to explain the rationale behind is the dental and medical and pay increases for town staff. And I don't want to put any caveat behind that. I'd love to hear your opinion on it.
Okay.
And just explain that for the general public.
So the change that was made through this budget, which will take effect
July 1st,
is this. Well, I think the pay is January 1st, but I think the insurance is July. Council will now make $1,000 a month. Members of council, so that's $12,000. I will now make $18,000 a year.
You're commanding $18,000 a year to put up with all this crap.
It was a lot, and I appreciate it getting done. And insurance came back. Now it's important to know that council had insurance, and then there were some members that didn't need it, and so they got rid of it because there were more members that didn't need it, and so there was
with existing plans and so forth.
I was not part of it. It's not. I can't speak to what the reason was,
and it's more common than not that boards or councils and localities have insurance. Mm-hmm. That's one of kind of the, I guess, incentives you get to run for council.
And it should be, because I tell you what, having my phone on 24 hours a day to answer to some of the folks that
you ought to get
are
something out of
you,
it.
you're damn straight.
If you go back to the original podcast we had, I mentioned both of those things.
Yes,
because look, here's the thing. At the rate that council and the mayor were being paid without insurance, it makes it very difficult to do it unless you just don't need the money, and now somebody's going to say, I need the money. So I guess they'll say that, but it's important to give people a reason to run. Now,
Ownership.
It's not a lot. It's not really a lot of money, but I mean, everybody on council's working hard. These guys are going to every event they can go to.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have 2 or 3 meetings a month, and you're giving them beforehand. It was like $400 some a month. I mean, that's a difficult task, and they take it seriously. I mean, look, regardless of what people believe about local government, everyone on council takes this job seriously.
I'm glad to hear it. I wish we could say that for the county.
Well, I mean, we'll give them an opportunity. I understand. I understand.
Let's touch on another one, and that has been brought to our attention. The forensic audit that was done, or is in the process of being done. And the big question there was, will the town ultimately release that audit? Now, I know that goes back prior to whatever you may have inherited.
Both of us, yeah.
But both of you. But is that audit an ongoing situation? What is the status of that audit? And I don't know. I'm asking a question of you guys, and I normally know the answer. If I'm asking a question,
and
I know the answer.
Knows more than I'm assuming. He and I weren't here.
I don't have a clue.
Neither one of us were here when that happened. It was started and completed before either one of us were here. So I don't know all the details.
So it's completed.
It was completed years ago. Yeah, it was completed years ago. And my understanding was that it was sort of an open and shut deal and nothing was found. So there was nothing that needed to be followed up on at that point. Nothing, because the forensic audit, it's not done just to kind of it's done to see was there some wrongdoing or something like that.
Well, I mean, we've heard over the interwebs, as you've both heard, I'm sure. Anonymous sources, or the pseudonym, have been shouting and screaming about this forensic audit or financial dealings with the town and the county, more so the county than the town, I may add. But the forensic audit might be a good thing to release publicly.
I mean, it was before my time. I don't know. I mean, I don't even know. I mean, okay.
It's something that has come up over the last 2 or 3 years with us. Oh, there's a forensic audit.
But that everybody feels like that's an ongoing thing.
Yeah, well, government's always out to get you. Remember that.
Well,
that's
no matter how big a fish.
Put your name to it and move on. There's my answer.
It's not ongoing. I mean, that much I
so
can
it's complete.
Over.
No.
Yeah, it was done before either one of us were here.
So we know. So okay, at that point, I mean, I think certain members of the community would like to see the outcome of that audit.
Tell them to give me a call.
There you go. Fair enough. Here's another slightly awkward question. And it's a bit tongue in cheek, but what interest does Holland Perdue hold in the town? And we're looking at and I'm sure the list is fairly extensive, but you know, the example was, well, we know that Holland is, has an interest in Anastasia's. I get it.
I do.
You're allowed to. That's exactly what business is about.
Look, I have interest in some restaurants. I have interest in rental property in town. I own a house in town. And I think that makes me look out for the town. So if anybody questions that, they can look at the statement I file every year.
There we go.
And they can get it. And if they can't get it, they can call the town and we'll send it to them.
Okay.
And that'll be how I'll leave that question.
And I think that's totally reasonable.
That's a good answer.
Because you're required to fill that.
Every year I do it.
I was going to say, just to expand on that, the elected officials are required to do that, and officials that are directly appointed by council, including me.
Yeah.
Mine's easy. I just own a house. That's all.
There you go. But that's the avenue that perhaps certain keyboard warriors and anonymous personnel and citizens aren't aware of, the access to that. Now, the access to some of the accounting of the harvester is a little bit harder.
It's different.
And I'm just not fully aware of how I can ask some accurate questions, and that may be more pertinent.
Starting with how can
time.
We throw all the chairs out of there?
Yeah, just get rid of the chairs, man. We want to stand and dance in that
you want
place.
A boogie.
We want to shake it up.
You say that, but and here's where we can agree, and we'll still be friends in that. But the shows that we do that are standing shows don't sell as well.
Isn't that bizarre?
Not even close. And I would have expected the exact same thing you're saying.
I'm shocked at that.
The standing shows do not sell well. In fact, we've had shows that we started to sell as a standing show and they weren't doing well. And so we'd convert it to a seated show and the ticket sales will go up. So
Is there a way of combining the two and say there's like a mosh pit? I'm not saying put a mosh pit down at the Harvester.
I mean, they're sitting behind the mosh pit. That makes
there's a little bit. The problem is that the standing people usually want to be up towards the front, and then if you're sitting behind them, you can't see. And the one where we sort of do a hybrid is actually on the Homegrown series when it's the local music,
right?
Because there's typically a dance floor, and so you've got essentially a standing area where the dance floor is. But
when Crawford and Powers there, we were devastated.
No, and I've been surprised by that too. But the reality is the standing shows do not sell as well.
I know 49 Winchester was kind of a standing deal, and they did pretty good for 3 nights. I think it, oddly enough, dwindled down on New Year's, which you thought would have been the bigger night.
That was shocking to me.
It really was.
That was shocking to me. I thought that show would sell out first.
Yeah, because who doesn't want to ring in the New Year's?
The town owns the Harvester building.
But
they're reporting a profit now, correct? I mean, the Harvester has reported a profit in the last.
Yeah, but it's leased out to.
The Harvester is an LLC, so it's a separate entity. It's a private business, and that's why when Simon said the records are different, it's true. There's a difference between the town and the Harvester, but the town owns the building. It's leased to the Harvester LLC, which is a private business. It's overseen by the EDA, and then probably what you heard when you said private firm, Midwood Entertainment is the company that Harvester contracts with to book all of the acts and to operate kind of the day-to-day parts of the Harvester.
We did have a bit of a battle.
We talked about that a little bit.
We had a bit of a battle about that, and they've stepped up. There's no question in my mind that they've stepped up, and what we're seeing at the Harvester is a good thing. But there was, and this is the misinformation that we receive.
How many times did you get kicked out of the VIP last time?
Twice. Thank you for bringing that up. But one of the arguments was about the rental arrangement with the Harvester and where those rent monies go, and that, from what I'm hearing, was a significant amount for rental that was paid either to the town and split between the town and the EDA, and however that arrangement was set up. There are concerns about that viability of funds coming into the Harvester from the town with an operating cost and then projecting a profit that may not have accounted for the funds that the town provides. So we're not actually necessarily at a profit. We're actually at a loss, but I understand operating at a loss when you're bringing in a spending public from out of town. So just explore that a little bit, because we cannot view because of the way it's set up, people can't FOIA some of those because of the LLC setup,
right? And
one has to be a little bit cynical about it. So help us with that.
I'll let Robert touch on the rent, but I want to say this because the Harvester brings more than 25,000 people here a year. Okay, let's say they bring 30,000 people here.
Absolutely.
Okay, the town puts in $500,000, and those people come here and they spend $20 a piece. It's a low amount. You might go out to eat or something like that.
I mean, you can put that at 60.
You can put it. Well, let's just put it at 20.
Easy.
That's $600,000 a year coming to local businesses. So I challenge anyone to say that the Harvester does not drive economic development to this area. Restaurants are opening up downtown. We've got multiple ones opening up. So if there's
that's a fair indicator. Well, no, that's a very good indicator that it's working.
That when we talk to them,
And if any restaurant owner wants to get mad about it, they can call me, and then I'll add something to my economic list on next year because I'll buy the building. You don't say that Harvester does not draw people here. People come here for a reason.
That's not in contention.
And I feel like there was a period where
what is the mechanic? It's the mechanics
muddy
behind what people can see.
Well, here's the biggest thing people need to keep in mind as well is the Harvester's been here for how many years now?
10. April was a 10-year anniversary.
You've only been in office for 2 years. You've only been here for about 4 years. So,
Three.
Okay, so people need to keep in mind that a lot of this and a significant amount goes back to the previous administration, previous town councils. So the questions we're asking of them, a lot of the times, they're probably not understanding how things were operating 10 years ago. So,
and before he,
they understand how it was operating 10 years ago.
Before anybody else chimes in, the previous administration did a great thing by bringing us here.
Yeah,
and so that you're never going to hear me criticize them.
There was a big
Steve Angle and Steve was the fourth vote, and it might have been controversial then, but I will tell you what he did was great for Rocky.
It was groundbreaking.
He made it work, and you'll never hear me throw him on the bus. And people have asked me to do it, and Steve and I talk. We talk often now, but I will say this: that's a sore spot for me now because what they did to get it here, it might have been different 10 years ago, but now
we're reaping the benefits.
We are getting the benefits,
yes.
And those guys, they did what they did, and so my hat's off to them. I don't want to let it not be known that that's where it is.
Right,
and you talked about earlier, Simon, that you have, and Billy, you've said the same thing. Y'all have issues with how government spends money, and there's things that you don't think government should be involved in, and that's a great conversation to have. And I get that some people will never agree that the town should have started the harvester, and that's fine. We can have a difference of opinion on that, but
look where we're at now.
But to be clear, also, the intent was never for the harvester to be a moneymaker in the sense of like if you and Billy started a music venue or something like that. That was never the intent. If it was, and I think I might have said the same thing, I apologize, the last time I was on here, if it was, we would do things differently. We would have a full menu and sell all kinds of food and all kinds of things in there because the goal would be to get you in there, spend as much money as possible.
You've got to franchise it.
Instead, the way that we do it, we want you to come see a show, but we want people to go eat somewhere else. That's why when I got here, it was already sort of being talked about and in the works as Mark Moore was working on it. Before COVID, if you bought a ticket to the Harvester, it was a general admission ticket. And what I heard from people was the line would be around the building. People get there 3 hours early because they want to be in the front for the show. And so guess what? If you stand in line at the Harvester, you can't go eat at a restaurant. And so what the new plan after COVID is assign seats, which we could do through the ticketing system, put assigned seats in there. Now people can show up 5 minutes before the show starts. So they can go eat at Anastasia's, they can go eat at Ippy's, they can eat at Buddy's, they can go wherever they're going to eat.
And by the way, the volunteers do a spectacular job at the venue.
Oh,
they really do.
I tell everybody this about the Harvester. There's three things that
I only got kicked out of VIP twice.
And you probably deserved it, so it's fair. Yeah, it's fair.
Yeah.
So, but the artist on the stage will say three things.
You were there.
That's it. Oh, I didn't realize you got kicked out, but they'll mention that the sound is amazing, which it is.
The sound is awesome.
The sound is amazing. I go to other venues now, and I'm very disappointed. I'm spoiled, but the sound is amazing. They will mention that the food is incredible. Center Stage does the food, so everybody knows that's true. And then the third thing they'll say is that the staff and the volunteers here are outstanding. And the artists will tell me this, and they'll say, these guys, everybody here is so nice. And I said, so it's not true everywhere? And they said, I just assumed that everybody would be nice to them when they came in, but they said, no, some people are horrible. So they like the staff and volunteers, the food, and all of that.
Well, that's the thing, like he alluded to, we do have our issues and I constantly, and that's not, and I want to remind people over and over again, that's not a personal thing. That's not a local thing. That's just me overall. That's just how I live and operate. But what I can expect though, is if it's not working correctly, I at least want to be able to, to hold people's feet to the fire and at least ask questions. So yeah, if it's going to be run, I want it to be run efficiently. And, for y'all two gentlemen, it's not something, I've ever mentioned to anybody, but y'all know why I appreciate y'all back for a show here a few months ago. Y'all did a huge favor for us. I wish it had panned out a little bit better for us. Maybe it will in the future. But thank y'all very much for that. I'm glad for these people to show up to this town. I want them to enjoy themselves. That's the same exact, if you listen to our show, that's the same exact thing we've got going on here with this. We want to encourage people to listen to this show and think, man, those guys sound pretty cool. The town sounds pretty cool. The county sounds pretty cool. Let's come there. Let's ride four-wheelers. Let's hike. Let's fish. And let's spend money. And let's hang out. Some of them people might come invest business here because, believe it or not, we've got some significant resources and connections out there that go far beyond the reaches of this region. And we want to encourage those people to come back here so everybody looks good. So,
it's the best place in the world. I'm sorry.
I agree.
Absolutely.
So you got to get out of here. Y'all got to get out of here in the next minute or two.
We got a couple more minutes. Yeah.
Pretty quick.
Let me see. We've had so many interactions. The harvest has been a big topic. The land. What's happening, by the way? Okay, here we go. Back on the contentious point. I'm just bringing this up. Do we have anything going on with the 64 acres and the concrete plant? Love to hear something about that, because again, that's been a point of criticism. We've criticised it heavily.
Sure.
But I'd love to know what the development is going on with. How's that progressing forward? Because the one thing that I think we all did, with Summit View is we took our foot off the gas, and we didn't hold them, Franklin County, Board of Supervisors, we didn't hold them accountable over the COVID period, for whatever reason. But I'd like to know where that 64 acres is going and what's happening with that.
A couple of moving parts there. The big one, the first thing that has to happen is that the current business has to move off the property. They're moving over into what we refer to as the Cox property, but at the back of the industrial park that's in town. And so that work, I don't know if y'all been by there, but the town had to extend the road to get back there, Weaver Street, had to extend the water service to get down there to that business. Right now, the business, they've started doing their work. They've done dirt work, and they're starting to do the construction. They should probably be moved over there sometime this summer, the next 60 days or so.
Right.
That'll then free up the land. We've been working with them for probably 6 months now. It takes a little while at the state level, but the State Department of Housing has a planning grant program that we're going to receive a grant from that will help us put together a master plan type situation for that property, so that we can then market that to developers that want to come in and do work on the property.
Now, the existing concrete plant that's going in there, now that was provided by the town for that relocation element to happen.
Right.
And I'm cool with that.
Right.
I'm not saying that's a bad thing. So that's looking to move. Is there, and I've had this question, and
which in and of itself is a huge benefit.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think we've talked about that just the fact that nothing against the concrete plant, they're just not the prettiest thing in the world. And when you pull off the highway there, you don't want that.
It's an eyesore.
Yeah, you don't want it there.
Absolutely.
You don't want it.
And that's
a huge benefit.
That's a huge benefit. Is there, and I've already posed this question to Holland, was the concrete bid for the new premises approved to Rocky Mount Concrete for laying that slab or pad or whatever's going in the new premises?
I can answer.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
I mean, I can fill in.
Yeah, I mean,
because you know where I'm coming from with it.
We didn't pay for him to put his own concrete pad there,
right?
So the answer is no. And I actually asked Robert. I said,
or maybe the easier way to say it, the town is not building his facility there. He's building it.
Yeah.
That's great.
And so it would kind of make sense that he would use his concrete.
No, and that I totally agree. And where the miscommunication comes from with the keyboard warriors that, post anonymously and stir enough shit to cause discontent is we're looking to clear that.
Well, don't ever let the facts get in the way of a good story, right? I mean,
there's absolutely,
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's funny because you look at that post today. That's kind of where it all falls back to, this splash pad post. Between the county residents and the town residents that are posting all the negative stuff, people are actually working.
Good.
The local government's trying to work.
Yeah.
Now, we can't bring you private businesses. If we do, or if we buy stuff, people get mad, right? But
you're in a catch-22.
Well, absolutely, but you can't have A and B. You can't go between A and B. So all we can do is continue to try to do what we're doing. But if you're going to put something out there and you're going to say it's a fact, one, use your real name, not your fake name or anonymously. And number two, be correct with it. By the way, Chick-fil-A's coming tomorrow. No, I'm just kidding.
No.
I had to get this.
You know what?
NASA's coming to Summit View.
You guys got excited.
I'm going to cut that. I'm going to cut that comment. I'm going to cut that comment. I'm going to re-up it just with that one part, not the kid.
Right, just that part.
Might as well. Yeah, I mean, let's just.
But that's how easy it is to say it.
Oh, sure. Of course
if I posted it tomorrow, people would believe it. You have to fact check what you're saying. And when I heard that you guys had said that,
we had a conversation.
I said, look, that's not true. I don't know where you heard it.
Yeah.
And we looked it up.
This is
It's
why
actually
we're having
good
this conversation.
man. Plus,
so
they send coupons.
When is Dunkin' Donuts going to put their place up on the old concrete plant? Because that's my rumor. I'm saying that out.
Are you starting that one?
Oh, I'm starting that one.
Okay.
Well, I'm also starting I've already started the NASA one going into Summit View.
Well,
I mean, I couldn't help
I
myself.
wonder what other rumors
yeah,
you've
that's- we're gonna see
started
how much
out
pull you
there.
have, Simon.
Did you tell him NASA was coming already to the new place? Oh. No, I'm just kidding.
But that 68, that's the thinking is for residential.
It's mixed
A
use
house.
is what we've talked about, but as Robert
Probably
said,
commercial up in the front just because it's on the road there.
Yeah, sure.
It has to be commercial at the front.
I mean,
Of course it does.
Makes sense.
And I mean, in all honesty, the town needs more help. I mean, for real.
No, nobody's going to
Absolutely.
argue
no
with
one's
that.
arguing that.
Yeah, nobody's going to argue with that.
That property was when the county did a study. That was the second. That was the second one, wasn't it? On the study for housing, that was the number 2 location in the entire county. Was that property? First was in Ferrum.
Yeah.
We don't want to go there.
Well, I think part of that conversation that we had, unbeknownst to a lot of us at the time, was that the county, and I think it was a county issue, it may have been a town issue, I'm not sure, didn't have access to the storm drains and the maintenance of the storm drains. And now that may have been an oversight for the 64 acres. But that has all the storm drains around the back for Kroger, Walmart, whatever. So all that storm drain stuff is
You
at the
ain't
back.
never rode a 4-wheeler under the 4 lanes of road and out the backside of the
I
thing
haven't
up and
done
around
that,
the
man.
Walmart.
Come on, man. So my original thought was
Very nice.
cynically that, so the
Back to
town has
Newsville
bought
for the
this
police
really
there.
to get access back so that they can maintain that element of storm drain, runoff, whatever it may be, because it wasn't coming from the owner of that property at the time. So I was a little bit cynical about it. I thought, oh, okay, so they're buying it because
That pad don't have runoff.
they need the access. They've got to maintain that storm drain system. Is there a viable land there to develop what you anticipate developing with whatever's being dumped over the edge there, the wetland issue, the whatever? We've already had this conversation. But I'm just intrigued as to, is it moving forward? And I'm sure we've wanted to hear this from Board of Supervisors with regards to Summit View for the last how many years. To be able to have this sit down conversation with you guys and allay some of the fears of the residents is, I mean, power to you for doing it. I mean, we're not looking to give you a shitty time with some awkward questions when it comes to transparency. But I think not wanting to repeat the mistakes of what the county has done, in particular with regards to Summit View, is having made the purchase, what's the next move?
Look, staff's doing great things. They're already working on it. I mean,
Great.
they're acquiring grants, talking to people. That's the key. Look, things don't happen overnight.
No, of course they don't.
But I mean, staff is, regardless what people think prior to or after, staff is hard at work trying to figure out how to get this done. We've got a great location. I think everybody can agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
And the best way to figure out is to get grant money, find something that works, and make sure it gets some houses in there too. So, I mean, I think
And no big box store.
Well, I think some of the
people want to target. So,
well, I think oh no, oh good luck with that.
yes.
I think a lot of folks around here, I think a lot of the perception with our lack of residential property within Rocky Mount would be alleviated by getting some of the older folks to sell up. Whether they want to do that or not is a question. But they're bigger homes that they're rattling around in that frees up a 3 or 4 bedroom family home into something that would be an assisted living type establishment. That would be a great inroads into, I think, moving our residential property market
Well, the patio homes over there.
And that patio home
Right across from the
type.
school board.
Yeah.
That's exactly
loaded.
what you're looking
that's great.
to do.
No, you're exactly right. And I've had plenty of older people, the group that I'm in now, older people come in and tell me that they would love to move to a smaller house or an apartment or something. And then you're exactly right. That would free up that.
But don't want to leave town.
House. But they don't want to leave. Okay,
right.
I should have said that. And so if those options can become available, it helps get them where they want to be, but then it frees up their house. And so, that's exactly the way it needs to work. Yeah.
And even
that's very refreshing to hear from a town administrator.
No, we agree.
That sees that, which I think is where we need to be focusing.
And it goes from that to the old farmers that are passing down a farm to their child. They don't want to leave here. They would move to town to live in a patio home.
Well, and they're centrally located. I mean, it's central to Walmart, Kroger,
exactly,
Food Line, everywhere.
Angle Hardware,
everywhere.
Well, pharmacies and things like that too, because that's important. I mean, I know this is
you need access.
Not to digress or anything, but the whole thing in Ferrum, they were kind of hoping to make out an older people settlement, but when there's no grocery stores, no amenities, no pharmacies, you're not going to get older people to want to live there. You need older people need.
Well, you need a village,
and especially older people.
You need a village.
Yes.
And that's not what is there, but that's a county issue. I think the town is addressing this. I think now that we've had this sit down conversation, I think you guys are addressing it admirably. And keeping that transparency up it doesn't require me or Billy or Amos to be holding you and your feet to the fire. And that's not the case, because I don't view that. This is a mutually, I think, agreeable conversation where we're letting the general public know that things are afoot. Now, there's certain things that you can't be told about because you can escalate property sales and you can do all sorts of internal damage by being too transparent. So I get that too.
Especially with regard to property,
particularly with commercial property, and anything involved with, that element. I think keeping that transparency open, is a good thing. I think the podcast is a good way to do it. People listen to the podcast. They may not turn up to the meeting. So I think this engagement is actually very beneficial for the town. And I'd love the county to swing around and go, actually, you know what? This is probably a good way of engaging with the county. And I would open the door to them coming and sitting down in the manner that which you guys have sat down. And thank you for it, because this engagement needs to crush the negative,
vibes.
Using
one of your Paul McCartney words, vibes.
It's a negative vibe that it doesn't work. It doesn't work for us. It doesn't work for you.
Well, at the end of the day, conversation
crushing.
is all that matters. You just a conversation.
But let's have that conversation. So we know you're open to any conversation. That pick up the damn phone. Don't hide behind anonymity. Don't hide behind a pseudonym. And at least turn up with some facts.
Well, look, I told you back when I was running, you could come find me up the street. I'd be back, and we were going to be transparent, and we've done all those things. When
you and I have been chatting back and forth a lot more than people give.
If you got a question, and it's vice versa. If you say something I've heard, I'll call you. You call me.
You up at Living Proof quite often. Doing
still hosting trivia, here and there.
And we're not. It's not as though I'm not afraid of swinging around and going, hey, I want to put you on a hot spot. Yeah. Here's something that's coming up. I'm hearing this vibe. Thank you, Billy. But yeah, make you aware of it so that you can address it. Keep engaged.
Well, I know, we have a lot of big name guests on this show, a lot of them with national and regional recognition, tons of following, but at the end of the day, the majority of the shows that are listened to are, the local ones end up getting really because more and more people locally tune in to hear some of the local ones. So all the numbers are always good for these shows. Every time Holland comes on, the numbers are good. You know, we have Henry on, the numbers are good. So we certainly appreciate y'all coming by here and helping out on that aspect. But, you know, just to know this is not a waste of time. People are paying attention. People are listening, and it is good for them. You know, it's hard to listen to a town council meeting driving up the road. It's just boring as hell. I'm sorry. That's why I don't want to get involved in it. I don't want to be a part of it. It's boring. It's mundane. Same thing with, you know, that's what I told the board of supervisors. I said, this is ridiculous. So some people don't want it, but what they do like is driving up the road and listening to a conversation like people are just sitting around having a beer. They're sitting on the fishing bank because they're more receptive to it. So for that, we certainly appreciate it. People enjoy it. They do.
And I'll say in closing, I always appreciate you guys and your commentary. But I mean, I can tell you there's not a whole lot of town, city, or county, city or town managers and county administrators that are going to come on the show.
Absolutely.
No, that's
not.
long
I mean, look, at the end of the day, you know, as a whole, we're trying to be transparent, work with you guys, and answer your questions. So, I mean, look, that's where we are.
That's an open door.
And I think that goes a long ways. It really does go a long ways.
That's an open door. That speaks volumes to me.
People don't, if they don't think they're getting shaded, you know, if you got, you know, Holland, they'll come on here, Holland, come on here and talk
ranting
about
and raving.
it.
Ranting and raving.
Well, this is, you know, we've had, this is our third show, and this is the first time Simon's pulled out a notebook full of questions for him to answer, because most of the time that's not what we do. We are a sit down and conversate. We're not a press conference. I know that disappoints people sometimes, but we're trying to work with people. We're not trying to bring them down. We're not trying to get gotcha questions. You know, we want to be able to develop relationships. We can figure this thing out long term. So for the fact that, you know, kind of perplexed me, Simon whipped it out and he answered just about all of them. So we challenge anybody else to please come do that. Anybody, you know.
But I don't want to bushwhack anyone
it's
either.
in everybody's interest for growth, for it to get better and better every year. I want my girl not to leave here.
Yeah, I want my kids to stick around.
You're not the only one.
Absolutely.
I want my family with me.
Well, on that note, I know you gentlemen got to get out of here. I want people to stick around for a few minutes. Now that my mother-in-law showed up, I bought myself about 30 extra minutes to do a subscriber show. We were going to do this at the tail end of the show, but since we got Holland and Robert here for an hour and a half, we've got an entire show. So we're going to do a subscriber-only show, which Holland can now listen to because he is a subscriber.
So y'all can talk about me on that.
Oh, now we can really get him.
We say all kinds of bad words.
So be sure to go to patreon.com/getontap, and for only $10 a day, look, you go and you'll spend $7 on a coffee every day at Starbucks. All I'm asking is for $10 minimum. You can give more. Wink, Holland. You can give more if you want to. $3 is the minimum. But you're getting, you know, when we start doing bigger shows, we start having some of these bigger guests come in. Our subscribers are going to be the first ones opportunity to come hang out and do these shows.
When we go
bigger guests? Every time he
we're not coming back. Coming back. He's talked like 3 times about big names and big guests, and then he's saying, and then we have these guys. Yeah, like we're not
I'm done. I'm out. I'm never coming back.
You know, I see where that could look bad.
Yeah.
What I'm saying,
both of them seem fairly fit to me, Billy.
look, I look at y'all as just as equals and companions here. When I'm talking about bigger, I'm talking about people that aren't from here that have different kind of influence than we do. That might look back at this place and say they want to come hang out.
You bring a shovel, keep digging.
I tell you what, I could have been a lawyer. I went to school to be that way. The only reason I didn't continue forward is because we have too many of them right now. And the last 2 shows we've had are
just like
doctors.
lawyers. When you need them, you love them.
Our previous show's going to have Chip on there, and of course he's our legal counsel. But seriously, go to patreon.com/getontap. Only $10 a day minimum. You can give more sooner. If we get more and more people are getting a little bit more money than $3, then we'll start having tiers. We can come in. But
better guests on the show. Please go to patreon.com/getontap.
And you heard it here from Holland Perdue.
Look, we're going to talk about this weekend at the LP National Convention about getting in front of Trump, getting in front of Vivek Ramaswamy. We made some pretty good connections, and who knows, I might even have a little insight into running for office myself. Don't worry about it, Holland. I don't want to be local. So stick around for that. Holland's going to listen to it and probably comment on it here in the very near future. If you want to comment on it too, go to patreon.com/getontap, and I don't encourage people to do this. You can do a one-time donation at Get On Tap for what the hell is it, Venmo or Cash App, but I suggest doing the subscriber thing because you get more content. Where can they find you at? Holland Perdue on Facebook?
That's right.
In the mayor's office, you want to go find them. Robert, Holland, thank y'all so much.
Thank you.
Stick around for the after show. We'll catch you here in a minute.
Well done. Thank you, gentlemen.
I'll drive around for this morning. She was standing there and I knew that she knew just where I'd been. Trapped in a lie without any warning. Her look said I'd pay for all my sins. Think she'd believe if I told her it's the first time and the last time. The storm outside was mild compared to the look in her eye. We could go back loving one another if she could forget this pack of lies. Things didn't happen according to my plan. I got out to beg and saw her night. No, it was intended for this man. I pulled it on her and took her life. Think they'd believe if I told them it was her night, meant for my life. The storm outside was mild compared to the look in her eye. When they see this dreadful bloody mess, they'll blame it all on my pack of lies. Didn't believe when I told him it was her knife, meant for my life. The storm outside was mild compared to the look in her eyes. Not much of a life in a barred up cinder block cell. I blame it all on the pack